Good afternoon. Or is it evening yet?
6 o'clock. It's evening.
All right. Can y'all hear me? All right. What time is it? We'll give them another minute. Hope everybody's doing okay this evening. Let's see. This one. All right, I've got 6 o'clock. Let's get rolling. Well, good evening. This is a Qualtrics session for the EDCI doctorals. I see Dr. Laws is with me tonight. I'm gonna go ahead. I am recording. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. I sent this document. It's also in I resent the link to the Google Drive that has the documents. So I'll start with my notes. Now, if you have questions, just jump right in. Slow me down. Let me see. Let me switch over to this one. So here we go. So the first thing to know about Qualtrics before you ever even open it up is if you don't create your survey in a Word document, you're going to be very frustrated when you start working in Qualtrics. By far the best decision that you could make is to create a clean, and I'll say that again, a clean Word document. That means turn off all the editing functions, all the formatting functions, numbers, all that strike throughs, where all of that, where it automatically numbers or bullets. Turn off everything. A clean copy. Don't use one that, well, I've got this one somebody sent me, and I'll just edit this one for the. Start with a clean one, with everything turned off, because every editing, comment, numbering will either ghost or come through. So start with a clean document. Make sure it's in Word. Don't number your questions on your survey, because you will get off sequence and they will ghost through. And so you'll have question number 1, then next to it'll be 1 or 7 or 8, whatever it originally was. So don't number your questions. Don't use bold or italics or underlines. Spell check and edit for grammar on Word. You can't do any of that in Qualtrics. What you put in is what comes out. There is none of that. Use appropriate punctuation, commas, periods, questions marks. Don't use coloring or shading of any kind. This usually occurs when you're copying and pasting from another source, especially from a PDF. Now, you cannot copy from a PDF. It'll just show up as blank. Don't copy from pictures or screenshots. That's what PNGs or JPEGs are. Don't use other word processing programs such as Notes, Pages, or anything Apple. It's not compatible. Do not do that. So if you understand the rules, you're going to be a whole lot better off down the road. All right. When you start building your survey, be sure that your survey questions match your research questions. That's content validity, because remember, in Qualtrics, we're not only going to build the survey, we're going to validate the survey at the same time or shortly thereafter. And we have to make sure that we hit all 7 types of validity. The big 3 being content, construct, and face. Face is, we just covered face in the first section there. Make sure you can read it and people understand what you're trying to ask them. That's face validity. Second piece is content validity. Make sure that the questions you ask on the survey will lead you to the answers that will be able to answer your research question. That's content validity. Make sure you do that. Make sure that your survey questions are developed from your literature review. Again, that speaks to content validity. If you're using a survey developed by somebody else, you must get their written or email permission to use their survey, and more importantly, to modify their survey if applicable. One of your classmates, that's a little bit, she's already defended her proposal, and we just got her through IRB. But one of the problems is she was doing the gender access in career and technical education, but the survey that she was using was great except for 2 questions. And those 2 questions asked just kind of out of the blue, have you been sexually assaulted or have you been sexually harassed at the vocational school or the career and technical school? They used to call them there vocational school. Well, that wasn't appropriate for the study that she was doing. So we had to take them off. But since she was using somebody else's survey, you can't just take them off without their permission. So if you're going to use somebody else's, even if you think, boy, I'm going to use this thing as is, don't do that. You got to get it through IRB, and they may have some objections. Make sure that when you get permission to use somebody else's survey, that you get permission to not only to use it, but to modify it if necessary. Very important for content validity. All right, so now we're ready to start building our survey. We've got it ready, we've got it clean, we've got it, our content's good. We're sure that our face validity is good. You can read it, it's not ghosted. We don't have extra numbers, punctuation. We can understand the questions, the content is good. They link back to our lit review and our research questions. So now we're ready to start building this thing in Qualtrics, and we're ready to go. All right, so here are the rules about building a survey in Qualtrics. To begin with, multiple choice answers about demographic data like age, gender, those kinds of things are arranged. The choices are arranged vertically. You will have a choice on multiple choice questions, and I'll go ahead and show you that. You'll have a choice as to the orientation. You want them arranged vertically. You say, well, Dale, what difference does it make? Well, none until you start trying to analyze your data. And then it matters a whole bunch. Because if you don't have them arranged vertically, then I can't pull out data according to demographics. What that means is I can just run one big default report on everybody that answered. And if you want to know men versus women or young versus old or whatever, I cannot pull those out. I can't filter unless they're in a vertical format. If they're in a vertical format, I can run a default report from everybody that looks like this. What is your current class? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. I can do that, and with everybody's answer, and I'll have, I have the mean, the standard deviation, the variance, and the count is mode. You should always make you a Word version and simply do a word replace. Let me do that. Show you right quick what I'm talking about. Editing. Get out of the way. So what you should do is simply replace the word count with mode on your default report. MODE, replace all, should be about 14. Okay, and so now look at here. We've got our mean, standard deviation, variance, and mode. We can run any analytics that we want to run, but this is for everybody who answered this survey. This was a college survey, undergraduate, Gardner Webb. And so, but this is everybody. Now, the only way that I can sort out the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors is that the questions are arranged in a vertical format like this. And then I can run a report on just the freshmen, just the sophomores, just the freshmen and sophomores versus juniors and seniors. So if we're going to have these demographic, or what we refer to as dependent variables, then they've got to be lined up this way. If we do that, then we can have everybody, we can have anybody that we want if we have categorized them. But the key is when we set up that multiple choice question, it has to be in a vertical format for our demographic questions. So let me show you that. Let me go over here to my account. So if it'll open up. So you see how I set that question up right there? That's what it looked like. It's very simple. And see, on the multiple choice question, you choose multiple choice, you tell it how many choices you want and what alignment you want. Very simple. Now, when we're answering questions about whatever topic, they're going to be in a horizontal format. They're going to go across. So, but demographic variables go in a vertical alignment. Can't say that enough times. Very important. So back to our list of what's important here. Go back. All right. Multiple choice answers are arranged horizontally. Now, please remember, if you're doing a satisfaction or agreement survey on a strongly agree to a strongly disagree, you should not have a middle column. In your literature review, you're going to run across a fellow named Frederick Hertzberg, and Hertzberg talks about satisfaction. He's pretty good at it too, by the way. And he says it's not a continuum, it's either or, that there are hygienes and motivators, or what we call satisfiers and dissatisfiers. So we don't do a middle column when we do satisfaction surveys. We don't give them the neutral choice. You got to pick one side or the other. Now, why is that important, Dale? Well, because Qualtrics is going to fight you on that one. It's going to try to put a middle choice in. Even if you take it out, it's going to try to put it back in. And so what you need to learn to do is for every multiple choice, let's say we're going to have 10. We're going to have 10 multiple choice questions, and these are the answers. You set up all of you set up all the questions up before you go in and start actually putting the question in. You set it up first. So here's what you do. So let me go over there. This is very important. So you go over to your Qualtrics, and you're going to start you a new survey. So you go over to home here. And you can go to projects from your menu, and you can create you a project and you name it. We're going to start from scratch with a survey. Get this out of the way here. And we're going to call it Tuesday night EDCI. And we're going to create that project. It's just that simple. And it'll say can grind a little bit, but here it comes. All right, so we're going to have 10. We're going to have, in our survey, we're going to have 10 multiple choice questions. So the default is multiple choice. Now we could have text or fill in the blank, or we could do a whole bunch of little crazy stuff, but here's the next thing. Never do more than 3. Try to stay with no more than 2 types of questions. You can have multiple choice and you can have some fill in the blanks, but don't have sliders, don't have matrix tables. You know, you're trying to make this thing as simple as possible. You know, you're not trying to impress anybody with your knowledge of Qualtrics. You're trying to get data. So make sure that you limit yourself. Because you can doesn't mean you should. And please remember, we don't use Net Promoter Score unless everything is Net Promoter Score. It is a whole system. We can't ask multiple choice, then Net Promoter, and then all your questions have to be Net Promoter if you're going to use that. And basically that means, would you buy our services again? So if you're doing a service delivery model, you know, would you recommend this to somebody else, and would you come back again? That's Net Promoter. So if you don't know anything about Net Promoter, don't let me bore you, but skip over it. All these different types of questions have a different kind of use, and unless you're doing a customer satisfaction dissertation, you don't need to be involved in those. A lot of these others, they're kind of niche questions specific to different kinds of studies. Generally, you're going to use multiple choice and text entry. That's pretty much what you're going to use. And if you use more than that, it's got to be very specific. So we're going to select a multiple choice question. We're going to tell it 4 choices, and we're going to tell it to arrange it in a horizontal manner. All right, and so there it goes. And so now we're going to click to write our first choice. Our first choice is strongly disagree. All right, for the accelerated group here, Why did I start with strongly agree rather than strongly disagree rather than strongly agree? Why did I start with strongly agree first? You have to do it this way, by the way. It's going to count from left to right, just like you read. So strongly disagree is going to be a score of 1. Strongly agree is going to be a score of 4. If you set it up agree to disagree, your scores are going to be backwards. Your quantitative score, your mean, median, and mode, they're going to be backwards. If you set it up with strongly agree on the left and go over to the right with strongly disagree, your scores will be upside down. And boy, that doesn't go well at all. So make sure you understand. You have to start with strongly agree because that's the number 1 answer, and it's going to be weighted with a score of 1. So we start over there. The second one is if strongly agree was the first one, this one will be disagree. And then agree. And then strongly agree. Now, sometimes it will try to fight you and put a middle one in, and you just have to come out next to it here and click it and just take it out. But it didn't tonight. So how wonderful was that? So that's what your question is going to look like. You say, but Dale, there's nothing in it. I don't want to put anything in it yet. I've got my questions. I've got my 10 questions on standby.
Yes, I have a question.
What I do next is I come right here to these 3 little dots. I come right here, and it's going to let me copy it. No, cancel. I don't want to do that one. I want this one right here. Make a copy. The one on the inside to make a copy, and it made me another one look just like that. Now, very, very important. Don't copy this one again. Go to the one you just copied. Otherwise, you get your numbering sequence off. And so you do the same thing, and you just keep rolling right on through until you get 10. Just that simple. Copy, copy, copy. Copy. Just like that. Now, we just simply come back here, click there, and copy and paste our questions in there. Just that simple.
Dale, I think we got a question.
I'll just use this one right here. I'll use one of these. Let's see. I've got Vera's pulled up. Let me go over here to Vera. Let's see. There it is. And I simply copy it. Go back to my survey. And paste it in there. And there it is. And it's just that simple. See, it's clean. It doesn't, it looks just like it's supposed to. It's not ghosted. Doesn't have any light places. It doesn't have a number out here to the side. It's just that easy to build a Qualtrics survey. Just that easy. But you got to know the rules. You got to know how to set it up. So let me give you a couple more. Again, if you're going to do open-ended, you use the text block right here. You use the text entry to do that, and you can add those. But one of the secrets is say you're going to do a mix. You're going to do 5. Let's say you're going to do 5 open-ended and 5 multiple choice. Make sure that all the open-ended are together and all the multiple. Don't switch back and forth. That affects your face validity as well. You know that. Y'all are smart people. You know all that.
Dr. Lamb, I have a question.
All right. So when you get through with this, now we hadn't talked about informed consent and IRB yet, but we're going to just in a minute. But when you get through, and I'll go to one that I've already done here. Let's see.
Dale, can you hear us? I don't believe he's here.
I'll put it in the chat bar.
Let me go back here.
I don't know why he's not here.
Okay. All right, so when I get through with this thing, I hit the publish button right here. And it's going to tell me my expert score. And this is for validity. Everybody knows what validity is. And so we're good on our face validity. We're sure that our content validity is good because we went back to our theoretical framework. We went back to our literature review, and we're sure our questions match our research question. Everything is good. So now we're going to view recommendations. Now, the problem that we have here is these questions are not optimized for a mobile phone. They're never going to be. That's immaterial. So that's good. But now the rest of them, we got to pass everything else. Now this one, it's okay not to pass it because that means that it's not optimized for a mobile phone. People aren't going to be taking these on the mobile phone anyway. But everything else has to pass. Valid display logic, that's face validity. The last question is not descriptive test. Minimal use of matrix table, value pipe text, pass, predicted duration, end of survey scoring setup, minimal use of text info, complete translation, timing medical are accompanied by other questions, accessibility, clear and concise. There's your, again, it speaks to your methodology, survey area. So you got to pass all the rest of them. And if you do, your survey is validated that time. And so you hit publish, and there you go. And your survey is published. Now, here's the problem. We're nowhere near ready to distribute because we haven't addressed informed consent. So let's go back to my notes and catch up and make sure that we've copied that we're where we need to be on that. And so I think I've covered everything here. Construct validity. Okay, here's the one that we get into sometimes as well. And I always want to make sure that we point this one out. For construct validity as well, you have to make sure that your questions are the same direction. You say, Dale, what in the world does that mean? Well, it means that you don't ask questions backwards. So here's one that I had in one of my doctoral students. He was working with a group on the zoning ordinance. And so, for example, if we're surveying to see how many respondents are supporting a zoning ordinance, questions must be written in a positive direction so that every yes or agree answer would be in support of the zoning ordinance, which is our construct. So a poor question example or a negative direction would be, is there any reason that you would not support a zoning ordinance? In this case, a no response is actually in favor of the zoning ordinance. And again, we go back to our data is upside down, just like if we went from from agree to disagree from left to right, that data would be upside down. On this, our data would be reversed. And so yes should always be in favor of whatever your construct is. No should always be. So don't write your questions backwards, because then we have a devil of a time when we get to analytics trying to figure out what it says. And so that's pretty much how you set these things up and how you work them now to distribute them. Before you can distribute them, you got to figure out how you're going to do informed consent. Now, here's the problem that we get into. I'll stop my share for just a second. Again, welcome everybody. Here's the problem that we get into with conformed consent. You've got to tell them when you do your IRB what you're going to do. And so the problem that you run into is how you distribute in Qualtrics is completely different if you're going anonymous versus confidential. Now you just tell them what you're going to do when you're setting up your methodology and you're getting through IRB, and you tell them that I'm going to do confidential. Now confidential means that you're going to collect data that's tied to a person's name. You're going to know who said that, but you're going to promise. You're going to promise to not tell who they are. I got one. No, I can't hear anybody trying to ask a question. Is somebody trying to ask a question? I don't see a hand, or let me check the chat.
Yes, it's me. I had a question earlier.
All right. Okay. Question is when is a good time to use the neutral option in the survey? Never. But you can as long as it's not opinion on satisfaction. You should never use the middle option on a satisfaction survey.
Well,
There
what
are times when you're doing surveys that are not satisfaction, that don't go back to being satisfied or dissatisfied under Hertzberg. Then you can use a middle column. I don't recommend it ever, because everybody just rides the rail, and then when you get your data, there's nothing. Everybody thinks, boy, I got my data collected, I'm ready to go now, everything's good. Nope, nobody turns to the methodology section except me. Everybody turns to the end, won't know what it says. And if everybody rides the fence on your data all the way through, when you get to the end, you can't say anything other than, I had some people take this survey, they kind of ambivalent about things. And so in my opinion, don't ever use the middle, but the actual rule is you can use it except in satisfaction, dissatisfaction, Hertzberg. You can do it anytime, but it's not a best practice. Okay. What does Steve keep telling me here? She is speaking and you're not. No, I can't hear anybody speaking.
You're not hearing me right now, are you?
It might be that my speaker.
See, he talks so much he can't hear. Michelle, you're getting ready to find that out next hour. He doesn't. Shanti, is it Shanti or Shanti? You see, he just does this. He can't hear all. Yeah. All right, Dale, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Well, where have you been? They've been saying all kinds of bad things about you.
That's why I had it muted. It ain't my first day.
Well, I've been trying to tell you, these good people that are going to have us next hour, I've told them this is what it's like. He just starts running his mouth and he doesn't listen to anybody.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to work here, and here you are bothering me.
Jessica had a really good question, and she was trying to get through to you. I was trying to help her.
I think I've answered that question. It probably wasn't the answer that she wanted to hear, but Steve and I were at a meeting this past spring, and I will not use the name. I generally withhold people's name to protect the guilty or the stupid. A person that should have known better sent a survey out, and she said, I should have known better than that. Said everybody picked the middle column, and now I don't know what to do. And I thought, well, at least you're the one that said it and not me, so I didn't have to point it out. I appreciate that I didn't have to point that out to her, but seriously, Dr. Laws will tell you, and he reminded folks on Saturday at our end service that everybody wants to read chapter 5. They want to know what you make of this data. I mean, I know that it's a big deal to get it collected and all that, but the real deal with your dissertation is, what does it say? And it doesn't do any good to get data that doesn't tell you anything. And so that's why I don't like the middle column for anything, but that's just part of it. So let's talk about informed consent again. The way that you distribute your survey is based on your informed consent. And there's two different ways. I mean, there's two different options here. One is anonymous and one is confidential. Confidential means that we're actually going to know who you are, but we're just not going to tell anybody. Now, obviously, in your informed consent for IRB, you have to tell folks that, just like Trish, we're going to lock it up in a filing cabinet at her house. And if you're old enough, and only Dr. Laws is old enough to remember when we used to lock stuff up in what was it Johnny Carson said, in a mayonnaise jar on the back porch at Funk and Wagon.
Hermetically sealed.
Hermetically sealed when he did his Karnak the Magnificent Act. And so, but you gotta tell them how you're going to treat that data, where, yes, we're going to collect your name and tie the data to you, but we're not going to tell anybody. We're going to hold it. Now, anonymous means we're not going to collect data. We're not going to know. And so we have to come up with informed consent one of two ways. And let me share my screen and show you that. So here's a copy of each of those letters that's in the drive. Let's see. This is the confidential one. So this is one I was talking about. Me and Trish, she's working. She's the one about the CTE. Betty Crocker wants to fix cars. An examination of the disparity of females in male-dominated CTE classes. Now, so it's going to be confidential. Data will be collected through Qualtrics and analyzed. All information acquired will be kept in a locked cabinet in my house and password protected computer only by me. All right, so she's going to be confidential. Now, the other one that I have for you, and this is what it looks like, is anonymous. That means we're not going to collect the data that you give, will not be attached to your name. Okay. You say, well, Dale, what's this got to do with the price of eggs? Well, here's what I'm talking. Here is the point. If you're going to track the data to that person, you have to use the address book function in Qualtrics to do that. So the data comes back to their name. Those emails do not come from you. They come from Qualtrics. You can't put anything in the email. So guess what has to happen right here? And before they take the survey, the informed consent is embedded in the survey. And so let me see if I've got one. Let me go to my projects. Let's see. I think we did one. Let's see.
Okay, so Dr. Lamb, is this informed consent? So originally I was thinking that I would have to give the informed consent beforehand. So are you telling me that I can include my informed consent like right before the survey is given?
Yeah, you know, that might be something that you would negotiate with IRB, but generally it just goes right before the survey.
Okay.
Or it's in the email. If you do an anonymous, you just send them a disposable link and you don't know who did it. Then the language is in the email. Okay.
I like for a focus group, like I'll have my introduction to it, and then I'll say, like you do have, you know, participating in the focus group is not a requirement. So, you know, you don't have to participate. So is that informed consent?
No, you have to have the whole deal. It has to look like this. It has to have everything, just like this one. So let's go back and look at those right quick. I mean, what they have to have is one that looks like this.
Yeah, there's a template for it.
Has a template. That's exactly right. You have to fill out the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I've got a copy of an email here somewhere. See, that goes in front, or it goes in the email itself. But yes, there is a template that they have to have. You can't just say you can choose to or not to. let's see, where's the email? Right here it is. If I can get it to open. So here's the email. This is the one that you've got to have it in the email if you're sending it. If you're sending, and this one is sending just a disposable link. We're not tracking this person. We're not tracking these people. So either you are collecting data by person, and that is confidential, and you have to use the address book function. Informed consent has to go before the survey, or you're doing it anonymous, and the informed consent language has to go into the email that you send from your Guard2Wealth account, along with a disposable throwaway link. It's one or the other. But again, that is determined by whether you're doing confidential or whether you're doing anonymous. They do not mean the same thing. They are completely different. Now, here's the deal. So when you're in Qualtrics, and I'm in this survey right here, and I want to, with the survey closed, you can't distribute and you can't collaborate with surveys open. You have to go back to your main menu here, and all your surveys have to be closed. Now, I can collaborate, which means share this with any of you, or I can send it to you so that you can distribute it, or I can distribute it. Now, if you make one, you can't publish it, you can't distribute it. You have to send it to me. I make a copy. You share it, you collaborate it to me. I make a copy, I publish it, I collaborate it back to you, and it's now ready for you to distribute. Or if I make it, when I send it to you, it's ready to distribute. But remember, you can't go to Qualtrics, create your own survey, and distribute it yourself. Somebody in, somebody in charge has to say it's ready to go. So if this were ready to go and I was ready to send this out, I would come over here, this undergraduate one. I click on these buttons at the end. I could collaborate it to you. I could copy it if you had sent it to me, but I'm ready to distribute this thing. Distribute survey. So here's where we wanted to be. Here is this little dividing line right here tells you what, that these are two different things. All right. Send with Qualtrics compose email. This side is for confidential because you have to build an address book and put everybody's address in it. And then it will come, the data will come back to those addresses so you'll know who said what. This side, you get a single reusable link, and you have to send the email from you with informed consent in your email that you send out. So you have to know which of these to choose. And if you get it wrong, we can't fix it. That's the bad part. If you meant to collect by people's names and you send out the single reusable link, can't help you. We have no idea who said what. Can't fix that part. Cannot do it. Now, and we can't put the genie back in the bottle. If you collect it by address book and you get people's name, the data is going to come to their name. And if you told them you weren't going to do that, that's an ethical issue. So make sure you know, and you set this up in when you do your IRB informed consent, how am I going to collect it? And then we'll determine which one of these sides of this box that we're going to use to distribute this survey. But this is the part we can't get wrong. This is very important. I've had people say, can you tell me who said what? No, well, you could tell me. Well, I can't know that. If we use that single reusable link, it's completely anonymous. Can't help you. All right, so we've sent the survey out, and now when it comes back, I showed you a while ago. Let me cancel and get out of that. This is what your report's going to look like. Let me go back to the default report here. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to have, let's see, I've got a copy of it here. And here's your default report. And it's going to give us those things. We change count to mode, and it tells us where we are on each one of these, our mode here, how many answered each one of these. And we can run any statistics that we want to run out of that. Now, here's the trick, though. How do you get this report? So let me show you how to do that right quick. So again, we're in on this survey right here. This is the undergraduate survey. We come to results. And there it is. And it's going to give us this is the default report. We come right here and we click that button, that little, whatever that little hickey is there. And the first thing we do is we download and one that's a PDF document. Now, you can't override it. It can't be changed, but that makes sure, so if anybody says, I think you thumped the numbers, you have a PDF document that was printed that has all the responses on it, and they can't be changed. It can't be broken into. It is there in perpetuity. So you do that first. And then the second thing you do is you run one in a Word document where you can manipulate it, where you can take answers, put them together, you can pull numbers off, you can do those kinds of things. But your first one is a PDF, the second one is a Word. And you saw how I got there under results. Now, if you want to run it by freshmen or sophomores or whatever, if you want to run it by demographics, men, women, young, old, by class, race, gender, whatever, you come over here to manage filters. And that's what I did. What's your current class equal to freshmen? It's just that simple. Manage your filters right here. You know, all of the following are true. What is your current class equal to freshmen? Save and apply. Now, when I run a report, I just get the freshmen. Really simple stuff, but you got to set it up the right way. Again, I can't do this if your responses to demographic questions aren't vertical. If they're horizontal, I can't help. You got to set your demographics up, you know, top to bottom. You got to set your responses up where the lowest, like strongly disagrees, the one left to right. You got to make sure your questions are all directional in the same direction. That yes is in support of your construct. No means that you're not. You know, you can't ask backwards or backwards questions. And any reason you wouldn't want to do this is that, well, no, well, that means I want zoning, but I should have answered yes to that question rather than no. Those are the tricks of the trade, because in the end, you want some data that you can analyze and you can say something with it. And again, on multiple choice, if you give them a middle column, they'll write it. Then there's not a lot you can say. But that's a basic overview of how you use Qualtrics. Again, you can go in and make a survey, but you can't distribute it. You got to collaborate it to one of the professors at Gardner Webb. They have to copy it, publish it, collaborate it back to you, and then it can be distributed. You pick you go with the method that you're supposed to use to distribute, whether it's anonymous or whether it's confidential. Your informed consent, there is a form you fill out. It's got to be there. It's either at the beginning of your survey, and it's real simple. We'll go back to that. You know, once you built your survey, let me go back to our survey projects here. You say, but Dale, we've already built the survey. How are we going to get it back in there? Well, it's real simple. We just go back to the survey and we hover our mouse over the first question. Look at there. It'll let us add one in front. And then we say, well, I don't want a multiple choice. I want to put my informed consent. Well, no problem. We'll just change to a text entry. And we'll click and write our question. We'll just go to our informed consent, copy it, and just drop it right in there.
Will I use that same informed consent template to send to the participants for a focus group?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's only one. Okay. And it addresses all of your data collection, how you're going to handle it all, whether it be survey or interview or focus group. Now I have seen
if it's the same participant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have seen more than one, but it was a different group. That's exactly what I was going to say. But generally, what you're talking about is you're doing I'm guessing an explanatory design where you're collecting some quantitative data. And then from that data, you're going to go to the focus group and tell them to explain why they said what they did on the quantitative. Is that where we're headed with this?
Well, more so, the quantitative data is going to be like student test scores, and the qualitative is going to be teacher perceptions of the program.
Yeah, why? Exactly. Yeah. That would be an explanatory mixed method design. Yeah, and so it's the same. Yeah, it's the same people. Yeah, so there's just one. You got to write it all together. Now, if you're doing two different groups, now Dale's rule of thumb on doing focus groups is never do bimodal populations. Do them separately. Never put them together. If you've got two groups, and when a bimodal population means that they're separate and they're usually competing. You don't ever do bimodal population focus groups. Separate them, because one of two things happens: either they're all singing out the same songbook, or there's a fist fight, one or the other, and sometimes both. When you're doing focus groups of bimodal populations, so if you're doing two different populations, you might. But again, the actual informed consent is you're going to handle their data the same way. Even though there's two different groups, you're going to handle the data the same way. You're not going to do confidential on one and anonymous on the other. That's one of the things that you're going to learn going through IRB. They're going to make you do everything there is a way to do everything. Now, I know I've read Cresswell a time or two and some others, and there's a number of different ways that you can do things, but not when it comes to IRB. They have one way that they do everything. They have a form, they have a template, and you got to get that right. And so back to this, something as simple as this, obviously we would do one a little better than this, and kind of put it together like the one I showed you a while ago. But so here's what you would do. We would copy that, move out of the way, copy. And we simply go back to go here. And there it is, and we make it look better. But at the end of it, we would have this, and click it now. And also what I do is I have this right here. At the bottom line says, click the ball, check the box below if you agree to participate in the study. Just simply make the box smaller. And you get one last, I agree to do it. And so you put it right here. But again, you don't have to do this if you're doing anonymous. You put this information in the email and simply the link that they go to, they click on the link, it takes them straight to the survey. But again, it's according to your informed consent. And whatever that is, just make sure it matches. I mean, you'll figure all this out when you go through IRB. How you're going to do this, the ups and downs and ins and outs. To do an email, pretty simple. We'd come in here and do a new email, and we would, did I spell study correctly? It's T-U-D-Y. I'd do that. And I'd have that, and then down at the end of it, if you want to be involved in it, you simply do this. Come back to your study here. Again, we have to close it. Remember, you can't execute any functions with the surveys open. And so we have published this one, so we're going to distribute it. Here's our test one that we just did. Distribute survey, get a single reusable link. Copy the link, go back to our email. And there you go. Not rocket science here, folks, but the tricks of the trade. You can't just say, well, I want to do it this way. No, you have to follow you make it work for you and don't fight it. If you understand that, it's pretty easy. The analytics, again, it's going to give you well, it's not going to give you median. It's going to give you mode. It's going to give you mode, mean, variance, and standard deviation. And that's all you need to run you can run, chi-square, goodness of fit, or test of homogeneity, or test of independence. You can actually run an analysis of variance if you wanted to. but not always good to do that. Well, rarely good to do that on opinion data, but you could if you wanted to. And of course, if you can run an analysis of variance, you can run a linear regression. I think together I think the common terminology now we refer to that as repeated measures. Still just an analysis of variance. So that's an overview. Look at the documents in the drive, go in and play with it, look at it, but understand that how you distribute it is going to be driven by your informed consent, what you told IRB you're going to do. How you analyze your data is going to be how you set it up. Did you set it up correctly where you can take it and separate out different groups in your data? Make sure that lowest is on the left, highest is on the right, 1 to 4. Your direct questions are always a positive direction, so yes means yes. Those are just some of the tricks. Don't be copying and pasting off pictures or PDFs or any of that. Make sure that you got a clean document to work from, and it won't bite you. You can go in and do it. You can't distribute it. You can't get it wrong until somebody, one of us has to let you distribute it. You can share, you can build them and share them with me, and I'll look at it and I'll say, yeah, it looks good, or no, it ought to have been in crayon. I'll do one or the other. And so there you go. Questions now. Questions you have for me. They're dumbfounded, I tell you. Blinded by brilliance.
I'm not sure that's it. So for all of you who are coming back at 7 o'clock, I just want you to know that you may think he's tired, but it's only begun. And I will do my best to get you out before midnight tonight. So
you sleep when you're dead. That's a good thing about being old. Don't have to sleep much anymore. All right, thank you all. I appreciate you being with us tonight. I will send the recording out to everybody that was here tonight. I know it's kind of a lot and it's confusing. It's not but the point of the night was to show you if he can do it, as old as he is, dumb, I can do this. It's pretty simple. You can do it. So I am kind of the benchmark. If I can do it, y'all can do it. All right, it's good to see you all. Thank you. Good night.